Hello, Studio 108 Seekers and Sages. I'm here with Michelle Toth, and we are so excited to bring you this conversation about meditation. So, one of the reasons why Michelle is such a great person to speak about this topic is because A, she meditates, and she's been working with the practice of meditation for a lot of years. She's going to tell us about that, and also because she is currently completing a program through the Chopra Center on meditation, and the data, the research, the strategies, and the depth of meditation that she's been experiencing has been super inspiring for her and to me when she tells me, and I think for you too. So we are here to talk all about it. Yay! Yay. So Michelle, yes. What's going on?
Well, thank you for having me, as always. I think we need to start with where we are in our lives. All super busy, right? Crazy busy, overwhelmed, have a lot of different roles that we're playing. So we're parents, we're teachers, we're students, we're, career women, just we take on a lot and we have a hard time saying no. So for me, meditation is one of those practices that we can put in our toolkit that I've talked about before, right? With Ayurveda, with yoga, breathing. These are all tools that we can draw from to enhance our lives, to practice self-care, and to get us back to homeostasis and balance. So that's how it's helped me.
About the neurology of multitasking, the neurology of being split and fractured. Yeah. It's like, remember when I was like a working mom, it's like when I was at home, I was thinking about work. When I was at work, I was thinking about home. Like we're constantly split, and that kind of brain activity needs an antidote. It's not healthy, it's not sustainable.
It isn't sustainable, and I'm glad that you brought that up because we haven't, as humans, we haven't evolved as quickly as our world has. So we're still in the caveman days. Yeah. That fight or flight, like the saber-toothed tiger is going to come and get us. So all the blood flows to our legs so we can run from the tiger, right? And what's happening in our lives with all the advancements and technology and everything, it's fast. We're not that fast, and our nervous systems are on overload. So what's happening is our bodies are in fight or flight mode chronically, which is not healthy.
Plus, we're using other fight or flight activities to counter our fight or flight lifestyle. So if I'm all jacked up from work and from hustling the kids around or whatever it is that I'm all, I'm busy with and stressed with all day long, and then I decide, let me take a run or let me take like a super hot power class. Yes. And try to do crow 6 times in one class. Yeah. Like I'm putting more fuel on top of that fire. Like I'm actually I'm actually running from the saber tooth for another hour. It's not countering my lifestyle in terms of the neurological impact and the impact of the cortisol bath through my body.
Right. So we need to really be mindful about how to get back to that balance. And so meditation is a tool to do that. For me, I was introduced, so I practiced yoga for years, started the Ayurveda program at the Chopra Center, and that's when I learned about meditation, and specifically they teach primordial sound meditation. Oh. And so that's when I started incorporating it into my life, and it's changed so many things for me, because what it did for me is I slowed down enough to get quiet and to listen and really listen to myself, listen to my intuition, start trusting that inner voice and that guide, and really get to know myself in an intimate way. And I realized that I wasn't making choices that were consistent with my soul and who I was at that level. So So for me, meditation has really changed my life 360. One of the big things I think that came out of it was I quit drinking.
Wow, yeah.
And it's been more than 2.5 years. But it was one of those things where I realized I'm doing all of these things in my life that are, healthy and get me to a state of well-being and joy and happiness. And that was one of the things that was taking me away from that. So
it's incongruent with the whole picture. It's like, yeah,
right.
This is what I say I want, but then look at what I'm doing. So,
yeah. But just slowing down enough to, to hear those little messages of, are you sure you want to do that? Are you sure you want? Another thing was I was spending a lot of time at work or on my career, and I was neglecting home or, my family. And so, I shifted my priorities so I could focus more on my family. So just slowing down and giving yourself a timeout. So, and a great analogy is, what do we do with toddlers when their nervous system is overloaded and they are, having a tantrum?
yeah.
We give them a timeout. And so meditation is a timeout. And it could be as short as a timeout. So it's a way to, soothe ourselves and calm our nervous systems.
And I was even, I had jotted the note to ask you, and then you led right into the whole opportunity. But like when we're in that fight or flight, the wheel is spinning. It can be really hard to like interrupt that energetic movement to take the time out. Like the toddler doesn't say, from this frantic place, I think I need a time out. Somebody intervenes and says, sit down, take a deep breath out, so when people say, I can't meditate, or it's hard to meditate, or I never stick with it, like, yeah, because that's neurology, that's energy, that's really difficult to put the brakes on and to change a habit that has such a strong pattern to it. There's so much energy wrapped around it. It's so deeply ingrained in the conscious and in the subconscious, and even in the society that we live in, Like I've lost friendships because I no longer want to talk to people about how stressed their lives are or my life is. It's like, that's not a topic, let's not talk about that. Let's not have that contest. So
there is a status, some people, how many times do you hear, I'm so busy.
Right.
Well, we're all busy, and
it's just not. So like, how do we put the brakes on and have enough like witnessing, like enough external capacity to like time out ourselves out? Do you have any tips on that?
Well, it's a great question, and what I recommend is starting your day with meditation before the craziness starts, because that's time. Get up a little bit earlier. It's quiet. The birds are singing. The kids aren't up yet. Think, your phone hopefully isn't on, or you haven't looked at it, right? And just take a time to set your intention for the day to get quiet and be still. So that's one way, because your nervous system is still calm. The other thing that will happen when you start practicing meditation consistently is that you get to know your mind and its tendencies. And so when you start getting spun up, and that feeling in your body, it starts in our body, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're mindful of it, and you can recognize it and say, okay, I need to give myself a timeout. And it could be breathing. It doesn't have to be like a 20-minute meditation, but it could be a 5-minute, I'm going to go to the other room and meditate, and take the time for yourself to do that. Another good time for me to meditate, and I know it's different because of the pandemic, a lot of people are working from home, but transitioning from work to home in the evening. So like 5 o'clock, let's say you drive home, you're in your car, you pull into the garage, and you just take 5 minutes to close your eyes, meditate, breathe, and get into home mode.
Turn off the engine.
Yeah, yes, put it in park.
Yeah. Don't asphyxiate, like leave the garage door open.
Yeah.
But like for sure, Especially, gosh, like I remember some cringe memories of just storming in the door because that transition, like, you know, you're coming in uptight and stressed, and any little thing from the kids, the house, the dog, like whatever, just cringe. Like that can really be the trigger that makes me behave in a way that I'm not really proud of.
Right, and you're going from role to role, right? You're a worker, career person, and then now all of a sudden you're mom, helping with the homework, you know, spouse, partner, cook.
Well, and everybody wants a piece of me when I feel like I have nothing left to give.
Right.
That's a really,
yeah. So meditation definitely is a tool, and we can talk more about, you know, the details, and there's so many benefits that we'll go through them, but you're just like,
okay, can I ask one more question about this changing the habits?
Yes.
So Michelle, like when you say, okay, so I feel like probably my best bet would be to get up earlier. Like how many minutes would be, like what's like the minimum that makes a difference? So I can say if I get up 10 minutes earlier.
5 minutes.
5 minutes. So if I get up 10 minutes earlier and actually sit for 5 of those 10 minutes, that's it.
You just start small.
Gotcha.
That's one thing I want to talk about too, is that I think the word meditation, it turns people off or scares them away. Because their assumption or their perception is you need to have, you know, a meditation pillow, and you need to burn incense, and you need to sit for 20 minutes, and it needs to be in a quiet space, and like all of this stuff that we see. But honestly, I'm usually sitting on the floor by my bed with my eyes closed in my pajamas, you know, and you hear kids and, you know, you hear things, but you just give yourself that time to be quiet and be with yourself. It doesn't matter where you are. You don't need to have a mantra. It doesn't need to be guided. You know, you don't need any tools or accoutrements. You know, it's you just need yourself.
And I remember Wayne Dyer one time saying the best time to meditate was at a red light, because the person behind you will tell you when your meditation is over. They will tell you. So he would be like, just if the light's red, just keep your foot on the brake, close your eyes, and take a few deep breaths. And if you're still meditating and the light turns green, they'll tell you. And then just wave like this and go on your way. Like
and then for me, I'll just look for times during the day to do it. So I know, you know, you hear people talk about walking or getting your steps in. So just do like, you know, a little bit in the morning, and then maybe a little bit at lunch, and then maybe after dinner or whatever. It's the same kind of thing. So I'll do my 5 minutes sitting against my bed in the morning. During a work day, you know, I might have a little bit of time in between meetings.
Michelle, you need to like get an app for getting your steps in. It's going to be getting your minutes in, and she's going to have an app. Don't take that idea from her. That's Michelle's idea. You heard it here. And then we can just like have an cumulative timer.
The little Apple Watch integration.
Hello.
The other time I do it is in the bathtub.
Ooh, sweet.
So, you know, there's just these little opportunities, and I have a very busy life, and most people do. So it, you know, it should be easy. It should be relaxing. It shouldn't be forced. You know, and little micro behaviors we've talked about make a big difference. And then when you do have time, a longer amount of time, then treat yourself to that. But
and I think the micro behaviors are really like those micro moments in using that for meditation is probably the best way to stop that frenzied cycle of the day anyway. So think about that.
You're just taking things down a notch and just giving yourself that time. The other barrier, so we talked about the perception that it needs to be like a super long time and you need to have all of this gear or whatever. The other barrier I found is I have too many thoughts. I'm not doing it right. My mind is racing. Okay. That is an awesome thing. We want, I mean, our minds, that's what we do as humans. Our minds are always thinking, they're always racing, and it's totally normal. And actually, when you do have a lot of thoughts, it's a good sign, because what it means is that meditation is working, that you're eliminating a lot of accumulated stress. So
It's like a gas off.
Eckhart Tolle actually, he said something really beautiful once, is like the thoughts during meditation, just witness them as like clouds, as you do clouds floating through the blue sky. Just notice them and let them float by, and there's gonna be more, and you just need to be okay with that. And it's fine. And then you just get back to your breath, and what will happen the more you practice is there will be, like, when you start a meditation, you might have a bunch of clouds all jumbled up, right? Those are your thoughts. They're like jammed up. But then as you meditate, even during that 1 5-minute session, hopefully the clouds or the thoughts are going to be spaced apart. So you have this, they call it a gap in between thoughts, and you won't notice it or feel it, but things slow down.
Yeah.
And so that's really what it is. It's just to slow down. But don't let your mind or those thoughts, freak you out and keep you from doing it.
I think too, when people say my mind is so busy, I say good noticing.
Mm-hmm.
Because really, for me, meditation is a lot of like that practice of noticing. And if you're noticing that your mind is really busy, then you're noticing. And that's the whole point of sitting there. It's just notice. Notice what you're thinking. Notice that you're thinking. Notice what you're breathing. Notice that you're breathing. Notice, the tension in your shoulders. Just notice it.
Yeah.
And that's the steps,
It
one
is.
notice after another. And you're doing great.
And it's a practice like everything else that we do. So it'll be different every time, and just be curious and kind of go with it. The other thing that can happen is getting really fidgety.
Yeah.
And that's another sign of, this is awesome. It's working, because you're releasing, you're releasing the energy or the stress and the toxins, because that's really what it is. It's a way, it's moving from activity to silence.
There's like an activation and deactivation of the nervous system. So we don't even notice when the alarm goes off, especially if you're waking up from a tired state with an alarm, which most of us are. We're not satisfied in our sleep when we have to wake up. Your nervous system will trigger right on. Like, you'll wake up and you'll already be like jacked and ready. There's already this on switch that happens. But what is difficult for us is like how we turn that off, and which is why, the line at the end of the day, those kinds of things, like, how do I turn the switch off? How do I downregulate my nervous system? So when you sit to meditate and you're getting those jitters or itchies or stuff, it's like your system's saying, can I turn off now? Can I turn off now? And so just like stay with it, because it happens. It happens.
Yeah, so the recommendation is to do a little bit in the morning before the day gets kicked off, and then a little bit, around like late afternoon, early evening.
Okay.
And for those reasons.
Okay, cool.
I want to talk about the benefits.
For sure.
There are so many, and I want to read some of them, but Chopra, they have meditation events, like Seduction of Spirit is one of them. And what they've actually done studies, and it's a 7-day event, and they take blood and like vitals at the beginning of this 7-day event. And then as a baseline, and then they compare it. And so they actually have tracked people after, 6 months after the event, and the benefits are still with them.
Have you ever done that?
The 7-day event?
Yeah.
I've not done Seduction of Spirit. I've done Whole Health.
Okay, is that the 7-day and you went out there and you stayed for it and they did your vitals?
They did. And it's amazing. So after 1 week of consistent meditation, so the benefits are both physical and emotional, right?
Right.
So after 1 week of consistent meditation, 20% decrease in disease-causing blood chemicals, 26% decrease in anxiety, 30% reduction in depression. So what's really, really cool, and Chopra does a lot, he's got a whole data arm of the organization, but but science is catching up with all of these, Eastern philosophies and practices to validate how it does change us physically and emotionally.
Right.
So it's really, really cool. The big one for me that I think about is it decreases inflammation. And inflammation is the leading cause of most diseases. So like, cardiovascular, that's inflammation of the blood vessels in your heart, or Alzheimer's. All of these diseases are caused by inflammation. So being able to reduce inflammation,
Right.
ginormous.
Ginormous.
Lowering blood pressure. The other thing is, you hear a lot of people say, well, I'll probably get it because it's genetic. But there is science that shows that our genes, we can control how our genes express. So even though we might have a certain gene or a genetic disposition, it doesn't mean that we're going to.
It doesn't need to switch on.
It doesn't need to switch on. And meditation helps switch on the good genes, and deregulates the bad genes.
Mm-hmm.
So it's working at like a cellular genetic level, which is proven over and over again.
Yeah. I mean, Chopra has this big arm of research, and Joe Dispenza has a big arm of research. There are universities that are doing research. I mean, there's more and more evidence of the impact, and I think as a society, it's still not in the forefront of the conversation, which is disappointing.
Yeah.
Like the wellness strategies for reducing risk of viruses aren't really at the top of the conversation, when they really could be, because there really is data. There really is.
Yeah, there's a lot. The other thing that is always a bonus is there's anti-aging benefits.
That's always good.
And you'll notice this when you start talking to people and just say, wow, you're 70, how do you look so young, or whatever. And a lot of times they're lifelong meditators, but there's the end of the enzyme, I don't know how to pronounce it, telomeres.
Yes.
That gets stunted as you get old, as you age, and so it actually lengthens this.
Yes.
Meditation does.
What shortens it?
Chronic stress.
Chronic stress, cortisol's washing through your body, toxins,
environmental toxins,
ingested toxins through our food, through our skincare,
toxic
through
relationships.
the air.
On and on about
right?
Toxins.
Negative thoughts and judgments, like toxins of like every sort, shorten that. So like at some point I think, oh, well, maybe I really, I don't really care about my endings. What are they called? Telomeres. I can only see it visually too. It's kind of a weird word. But I don't really care about lengthening them. I don't really care. But look at all the things I'm doing to shorten them. So really what I want to do is minimize the shortening. I want to push back against that.
Yes.
I want to counter the rest of the life I live.
For me, I would love to look young and beautiful, but really it's about, I'm an older mom, so I supported when I had the kids. I want to be vital and healthy and live a really long life. So for me, this is just like preventative maintenance, or more about longevity. So it's like, really, really
it's like
exciting.
Cleaning your bathroom.
Well,
life gets us dirty, we need to clean it.
Deepak he says this, he said, meditation is like taking I'm not sure why he uses this. It sounds so rural and ancient, but meditation is like taking your clothes down to the river and washing your clothes against a rock, and rinsing and washing and rinsing. That's what meditation does for our mind.
Interesting.
It is a detoxification process, and it just keeps everything clean, and it keeps the energy flowing. And we do that in yoga and Kundalini and all of that. It's about managing that energy and the flow. So we talked about all the physical benefits. There are, emotional or benefits for our mind. So reducing stress, feelings of stress, anxiety, increases, so the opposite, peace, awareness, expands our experience of healing or feeling positive emotions. So just our consciousness really shifts and we start appreciating things. Because again, when we slow down, we do tend to be more grateful.
Yeah.
Because we're reflective of what's going well in our lives. And if we're busy and moving from one thing to another, we don't notice.
And I think the brain has this way of shifting into an all or nothing. So when we're busy and we're distracted and we start seeing negative, we just start seeing more and more negative. But if we take like 1 or 2 or 3 little meditation breaks a day and kind of change the lens and can see something positive, then we'll be able to see more positive and more.
Well, and it goes back to the evolutionary thing.
Right.
Like we're wired to be thinking about protecting ourselves and fear. So that's what we focus on. So meditation shifts us into a different state of consciousness where we are looking at more positive, opportunities.
Kind of things.
Yeah. And it also helps us break the patterns that we have, like the thinking patterns, the behaviors, those kind of things.
I remember meditating and like taking inventory of what thoughts and stories were going through my head and coming across this one situation where it was actually not even in the present moment, it was a memory, it wasn't in my current life. But the memory came through and I was remembering the anger and the resentment, and I'm like, oh, like I'm not done with that yet. And and so a couple deep breaths, I'd like to be done with that. I'd like to forgive that person. I'd like to, and so I wasn't stopping thinking, or I wouldn't have been having this experience, but the noticing the thinking let me have a really meaningful, like mental clearing, energetic clearing of this past event. So that's cool.
It is really cool. And it helps us make more conscious choices.
Right.
Like we can choose to be mad and angry and resentful, or we can check ourselves and say, well, is that really serving me?
And if I'm too busy, I don't even know I'm mad.
No. Like you're just annoyed, but you don't know why.
Right. Yeah. And oh my gosh, like this idea of like listen to yourself, Tracy. Like after I talk to somebody and I walk away, like how did you present? Were you like your positive self?
Yeah. And if you weren't or whatever, again, you're conscious, and maybe the next day you go back to that person and say, you know what?
Yeah.
I wasn't my best self.
Or maybe tomorrow I actually get up and do my meditation, so I can be in a better place.
Preventative
maintenance, clean the bathroom, wash your clothes
in the river. So to your point, like it also improves relationships, right? It improves your sleep because your nervous system, you're just more balanced. So you're able to relax.
Sleep is life.
And then it's also shown to help with reducing addictive tendencies. And well, for me, the alcohol thing, it was just again, that voice inside of me saying, you don't need this anymore.
Yeah.
Like, stop. So very, very cool. Lots of reasons to do it. Not always easy to make the time to do it, but 1 minute at a time.
And I feel like things like meditation are the pebble that you throw and then the ripples go out. So I try to remember that, it's a 5-minute meditation and I can skip it. I have permission to skip it. But if I want to throw the rock in the lake and have the ripples go out, so it's the 5 minutes, but really it's the whole day. Yep. It's the 5 minutes that ripple into the whole day. And so I don't really want to meditate, but I do want to have a good day.
Yeah. And hopefully it gets to the point where it's like brushing your teeth, right? Where it's just a given and you look forward to it. Yeah. It's time with yourself and it should be a treat. And there are so many different kinds of meditation. So, there's TM or Transcendental Meditation that was really, really popular. That's where Deepak got his start. So I studied with his daughter, Malika, and she says that he came over from India with her mom, and he started his medical practice, and they had zero money. And he was smoking, drinking, never home, workaholic, and I'm like, oh, he's human. Yeah, so real.
We love Deepak even more.
Yes, and it was cool to hear it from his daughter, talk about it, but he found TM. And he was interested in it from the scientific, because he's a scientist, right? He's a medical doctor, and he's geeking out on the science part of it and the brain and all of that. But then he started practicing it, and he was hooked. And he, because he noticed all the changes that were happening in his life, and he quit drinking and he quit smoking, and he still was a workaholic though, because Malika said that he was rarely home as she and her brother were growing up.
How long was he a doctor? When did he shift to the wellness industry?
I don't know. I mean, I'm not sure. I'll have to look back on that, because it is interesting. So he met Roger Gabriel at a TM conference, and Roger Gabriel is another person a teacher that I study with. But so he met Roger at a conference, and I think he asked for him to give him a ride back to the airport or something in Boston. And Deepak's like, hey, do you want to move to Cambridge and help me with my medical practice? And I think he's a cardiologist, right? Deepak, yeah, he's a cardiologist. And Deepak said he wanted to expand his medical practice to be, to incorporate the Eastern with the Western. And Roger was a TM teacher. And so Roger's like, sure, I'll do it. So the two of them hook up and expand his practice in Cambridge. And then they met David Simon, who was a doctor in San Diego. And they decided to open the Chopra Center in
LA.
In San Diego.
Yeah. Oh, in San Diego. Okay.
And so that's how it all started. The whole Chopra Center. And now it's Chopra Global, and they're in Arizona and New York City. So they branched out. But anyway, that's how they got their start. But so we're talking about TM and the different kinds of meditation. So TM is probably the most popular, and that's mantra based. And mantra is in Sanskrit. Mantra is man means mind, tra means tool. So mantra is an instrument for the mind. And in TM, they have mantras for specific things. So if you want to work on forgiveness,
they're super secret about it. So the fact that you're sharing this is news to me. Because people that I know that have done TM and practice it, they won't say a word about it. They won't tell you a thing about it.
Oh.
And when you look up these trust you. But I'm super excited. This is disclosure right here. This is huge. Yeah. Well, for me, maybe I just haven't stumbled upon the answer, but I've looked to see, what is this TM all about? See what's the strategy, what kind of interest.
So it's mantra based.
So it's mantra based.
Yeah. And if you're struggling with a certain thing, forgiveness or I don't know,
they have a mantra.
They have a mantra, and then that's what I think so.
Interesting.
That's what and then they have, different mantra for a chakra or, so.
Outstanding.
Yeah. So you focus on that as you're, and you repeat it silently, and that's what you focus on when you're meditating. So there are also, I got my start, even before Ayurveda, now that I'm thinking about it, doing the Deepak Oprah 21-day meditation series, those free series, and they still have them, and they're awesome. But they're guided, and they have a theme for those 21 days. So it could be, I'm just going to say forgiveness. It could be, that. So the most recent one was, I think, female empowerment with Alicia Keys. So she led it, so so that's guided, and I think that's really good for beginners.
Yeah, but you can put that on your list of ways to get started.
Yeah,
Like ways to like interrupt things with this online. They're free online,
they're
right?
free, and they do an intro at first, so you talk about forgiveness, and then you are, quiet, and they play music, and then you relax for, 10 minutes, and then they'll ring a bell, and then you'll know it's over, and then they wrap it up, and you're good. And they have apps. So Chopra has an app now that has all different types of meditation. And then there's Headspace and Calm. There's so many tools out there. And
Insight
Timer. I mean, there's all kinds of.
And if you're a seeker, sage, every month, coming up at the end of the week, this week I'll be sending the monthly email with the YouTube video of a meditation for you to practice with. So
yeah,
and I have all kinds of free ones too that are on the YouTube channel. So if you're not a seeker or sage, you just Google those. So it's easy to find meditations, and all it takes is one.
Yes, and you can repeat the same one over and over. It's just a personal preference, and I found for me, it depends on my mood.
Yeah.
So it have fun with it.
Yeah.
And just explore, different things.
Right.
I know we're not going to go deep into this right now, but what I'm trained in is primordial sound meditation.
Yeah, I want to hear about that.
Which, so I'll just at a high level, this is your teaser because we're going to have some classes coming up. But primordial sound meditation is an ancient practice originating in India. Adi Shankara was a sage back in, I want to say like the 8th century or whatever, and he started primordial sound meditation. And Deepak, Roger, David, now that you know all the playas, they wanted to revive this ancient practice back in the 90s. So what Deepak did is he got a bunch of scholars together in the United States, US, American scholars, and then the scholars in India to, learn about it, study it, and revive it, and they put together a program. And so there's over 1,000 primordial sound teachers currently, and what Deepak's goal is to get critical mass, or 1 billion people meditating at the same time, because that will change consciousness on our planet, so we have world peace. Yeah. It's so touching. It is. So primordial sound, what's cool about the primordial sound and how it's different than TM is that you get your own personal mantra. And what that is based on is, and this is taught in Ayurveda, is that we are one with the universe. It's all, we're all vibration, we're sound. The first sound of that the universe made is Om. And so there are 108 primordial sound mantras. And you will get yours based on your birthday, time, and location.
Interesting.
Because these sages back in the day realized that the universe makes a different sound based on the position of the moon and the lunar cycle.
Interesting.
So with primordial sound meditation, there's actually a ceremony, and you receive your own personal mantra.
Interesting.
And then that's what you use during your meditation. And the reason why it's on, when you were born is because that experience from coming from what they say is the non-local to the local, that sound that the universe was making can take you back from the local, which is what we're living in, and the constant stress, to the non-local, which is your soul and your divine spirit and all of that. So that's the thought.
That's so beautiful. Like I heard this story years ago, and that in a particular tribal nation, when a child is born, the community gathers and sings the child's name. And so anytime the child goes astray, the community will gather and sing the name again to remind the child who they were and to bring them back. And it's that same idea of you having this sacred sound vibrational experience as you enter, and then stimulating that in your present moment to kind of remind you who you are.
And then it just becomes, the more you do it, it becomes almost like a whisper, like you're not, it's just like a
It
soundtrack.
carries with you.
It's just a soundtrack as you're, sitting there meditating. And then I think about like when I die,
Yes, that's your
that
sound.
I will probably meditate,
On your sound.
if it's not like a quick death or whatever, but like meditate on my sound and feel safe.
Yes.
And like, okay.
Yes.
And
And Kundalini Yoga talks a lot about that too. When you get into the deeper training or the deeper teachings, it's like the practices are a preparation for our transition home. Like for our souls, to do our work here so that our soul can get the lessons and live the destiny, and then to have this divine pathway of returning home.
yeah, makes it way less scary and just comforting and
Yeah.
I don't know, but
Well, it makes all of life way less scary and more comforting.
yeah. So that's my
I love
little
that.
teaser to primordial
I
sun
love that so
meditation.
much. I can't wait to get my sound. Will you be doing it?
I will be, yes, but it's part of the process.
It's part of the process. I have to come to the workshop, which, we're thinking August 22nd or another nearby Sunday. So we're shooting for that date. We're putting something together. It's concrete. It's going to happen. And when we have it organized, we'll be shouting it out to all of you. First to know, seekers and sages.
Yeah,
always.
thank you. And in the meantime, give yourself a time out, a couple days or a couple times a day.
For sure.
Yeah, get still.
Do you feel it? The meditative moment we're giving you right now.
Namaste, Carol.
Go with it. Blessings. Remember who you are. Thank you.